Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Jasmin Cowin, and I am incredibly honored to be presenting today for International Education Week, IEW. IEW is a celebration of global learning and cultural exchange designed to expand horizons and foster connections across borders. Held from November 18th through the 22nd, IEW will feature a diverse array of events, including lectures, workshops, and interactive sessions, where educators and students alike can explore the future of education and innovation. My name is Dr. Jasmin Cowin, and I am a professor for teaching TESOL. And I will be speaking today about co-evolving teaching practices in the age of AI for this IEW. Co-evolving teaching practices in the age of AI. It is a profound honor to speak with you today about a transformation that is not just changing education, but redefining its very foundations. We are witnessing the emergence of a dynamic trifecta: teachers, students, and artificial intelligence that is crafting new educational chronotopes, unique configurations of time and space where learning occurs. This relationship does not simply layer technology atop existing models. It fundamentally reconfigures when, where, and how education unfolds. In traditional educational settings, learning has been confined to specific times and places. For example, the classroom during scheduled hours or your library during study periods, forming a linear journey during the day with clearly defined milestones and checkpoints. However, with the integration of AI, these temporal and spatial boundaries are dissolving. It is possible that AI's role in education will one day transcend mere assistance by actively participating in shaping educational experiences, thereby altering traditional time-space configurations of learning. Chronotopes that reflect the complexities and demands of the 21st century world. How does this shift align with the lab-to-classroom model proposed in cognitive psychology and neuroscience, where controlled environments like virtual simulations, though initially seeming contrived, offer valuable control over learning conditions? Starting with simplified materials, learners can gradually build up to complex techniques in realistic contexts, strengthening neural connections as suggested by neuroscientific research. Envisioning the year 2060, one might imagine a classroom where artificial intelligence is not just a tool, but an integral part of the learning environment. Students, the first generation of the artificials, have grown up with AI companions, personalized learning algorithms, and immersive virtual realities that transform the way language is taught and acquired. These students in 2060 will be adept at navigating a world where the lines between the physical and the digital are increasingly blurred, embodying the co-evolution of teaching practices and technological advancements. This approach moves beyond intuitive teaching methods. For instance, research indicates that repeated reading does not significantly improve long-term retention of information, Callender and McDaniel in 2009. By emphasizing evidence-based instructional strategies and leveraging AI, education can enhance memory consolidation and promote deeper learning, ultimately aligning teaching practices with the fundamental neural processes that underpin effective learning. How does learning happen? Through a network of neurons transmitting sensory information via synapses. temporarily storing it in short-term memory, a volatile region that processes the flood of sensory input we encounter daily. This information is then relayed through neural pathways to the brain's structural core, where it is compared to existing memories and then stored in long-term memory, a vast repository of everything we have experienced. While this process is nearly instantaneous, it is also prone to errors, as signals traveling across billions of axons and synapses can degrade, leading to incomplete or altered memories. Neuroscientists have shown that learning occurs by strengthening or weakening connections between neurons. Recent research at the University of California Irvine Center for the Neurobiology of Learning and Memory demonstrated this by how neurons interact during new tasks. They found that frequent communication between neurons strengthens their bond, enabling faster and more accurate transmission, while infrequent interaction results in incomplete signals and faulty or absent memories. And that really explains why your familiar commute, regardless if you're driving or taking the subway, requires no conscious effort. Neurons involved in navigating have it bonded tightly, like old friends. Conversely, driving to a new location requires much more effort because the neurons responsible for navigation haven't interacted enough to form these strong connections. In such cases, the brain works harder to create new neural pathways, demanding greater attention and focus. This research underscores the importance of repetition and practice in forming durable memories. So, this is a cognitive phenomenon called fluency, where experiences become more accessible and effortless, recalled over time. And now remember, you see this best shown when you listen to a concert by musicians. You go to the symphony, you go to the opera, you go to a piano concerto, you see the performer perform without any music at all. Well, that is that idea of called fluency. Building upon the integration of artificial intelligence in education, it is possible that teaching practices may fundamentally transform by fostering a dynamic synergy among educators, learners, and intelligent systems, collectively redefining the temporal and spatial boundaries of learning. And you see this here in my infographic. So this dynamic trifecta could enable personalized and adaptive learning experiences that not only reflect the complexities of the 21st world, but also align closely with the neurobiological mechanisms underlying memory formation and synaptic plasticity. By incorporating insights from behavioral psychology, cognitive psychology, and neuroscience, AI-enhanced educational platforms might facilitate frequent and contextually relevant interactions, strengthening neural connections more effectively and promoting the consolidation of information from short-term to long-term. This means that this approach mirrors neuroscientific findings that repetitive engagement and recent practice fortify neural bonds, leading to increased fluency and effortless call of information. Now, what are the implications for the future of learning? The reconfiguration of educational chronotopes to the teacher-student AI trifecta heralds a future where personalized learning is AI algorithms adapt to individual learning styles, pacing, and preferences, enabling students to navigate their educational journey more effectively. It will be more accessible. Learning resources are available globally, breaking through geographical barriers and democratizing education. It will be more collaborative. Technology fosters connections among students and educators worldwide, promoting cross-cultural understanding and collective problem solving. It will be more lifelong. Education becomes a continuous process, supporting individuals in adapting to rapidly changing professional landscapes. This transformation compels us to reconsider the very fabric of educational systems, curricula, and pedagogical approaches. It challenges us to design learning experiences that are flexible, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of our diverse student population. Embodied cognition is another fundamental aspect of language learning. It is deeply intertwined with our innate biological and physical expressions. As highlighted by Cosmas and Safiris in 2018, our cognitive processes are inextricably linked to our interactions with the physical world. The limitations of current digital platforms, which often lack avenues for direct physical engagement, can lead to a disconnect that hinders the natural development of the cognitive abilities rooted in our physical embodiment. Therefore, it will become ever more important in the future to foster learning environments that prioritize real-world experiences, guided by teacher intervention and facilitated through group interactions. Such environments leverage our biological predisposition for socialization and physical interaction necessary for the holistic development of our skills. We all know this through our teaching. By integrating direct human contact and collaborative learning experiences and activities, we can create educational settings that fully embrace the physicality of our human experiences. And that means that you go out in the world, right? You take field trips. You are going to go and work within a physical reality. So first, perhaps you will showcase perhaps something in a virtual world, take a practice trip, and then you're going to do this in the real world. However, we must be mindful of the potential neurological changes associated with a prolonged exposure to digital interfaces and information overload. A study by Sao et al. Suggests that screen media activity may impact neurodevelopment in youth, linking it to brain structural patterns such as cortical thinning. As educators, it is our responsibility to stay informed about the latest research in this area and to develop strategies that mitigate any potential adverse effects on our students' cognitive development. There needs to be more empirical research into how high levels of screen time can affect the areas of the brain related to cognitive control and emotional regulation. As Sao et al. Point out in Brain Structural Covariation linked to screen media activity and externalizing behaviors in children, they say screen media activity, SMA, may impact neurodevelopment in youth. Cross-sectionally, SMA has been linked to brain structural patterns, including cortical thinning in children. As an educator and mother, I would appreciate more in-depth discussions on the long-term impacts of these changes and whether they could lead to significant neurological alterations. I favor a more balanced approach. To co-evolve our teaching practices effectively, we must strike a balance. We must strike a balance between embracing innovation and preserving the core values of education. Human AI collaboration. View AI as a collaborator rather than a replacement. This mindset encourages us to leverage AI strength while recognizing the irreplaceable value of human intuition and empathy. Reflective practice. Continuously assess how the integration of AI and the reshaping of chronotopes impact learning outcomes and student well-being. And then you have to adjust your practices based on your reflective insights. Professional development. You have to invest in training. You have to invest in training system-wide as a higher education institution. You have to invest in training departmentally to look at what the newest research is saying. You have to invest in professional development for yourself. And I have talked about that extensively, perhaps like a stacked type of degree acquisition, post-bachelor's degrees, because we as educators need to make informed decisions. So what do we have in the future? We have possibly chatbots, virtual assistants. We have emotion recognitions. We have image to 3D, image to video. There's going to be so much. So in essence, this is this trifecta where you have us, the educators, you have the AI, and you have students. And we co-create and we co-learn. Because when you are working with an AI system, this is a reciprocal space. As you ask it for information, you are also training the system with your information. And this is true for students too. As they ask for information, they are training the system, and the system is also training us. Before we proceed, it is essential to understand how language shapes thought, a concept critical to language education. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, also known as linguistic relativity, suggests that the language we speak influences our cognition and perception of the world. So what does this mean? Think about it. You are living somewhere in the Arctic, right? You're going to have many different words for snow, mist, and ice. And you perceive the world with those expressions because they mean different things. If you live on a beautiful Caribbean island with turquoise waters, you will have a different set of language associated with water, warmth, sunshine, and sand. Completely different way of visualizing the world. And if you hear a word that describes snow in an intricate way, it will not translate into your language. As a matter of fact, that is why true translation is so difficult, because you are not translating word for word, you're translating the concept and intention of what the writer was trying to say. Right? Now, in cognitive linguistics, that posits that language is deeply intertwined with mental processes and experiences. In the age of AI, these theories gain new relevance because AI is becoming a mediator of language learning, and language acquisition and language teaching. So, and it's all done through a natural language model. So we must consider how it might influence cognitive development and whether it could inadvertently impose linguistic constraints that shape thought processes. So think about it this way. Here in where I work, when I look at student work, I can see a set of words coming up now very often. Revolutionize, unleash, delve. These words were not usual words that I would see before the advent of artificial intelligence, before using, ChatGPT or other models like this. So what has happened is that these are preferred words for the models, and they start showing up in students' writing, thereby changing the way that students and writers use language. And you can see this, I call them watermark words. So when I see it, I always know that there was some sort of use of AI in the writing processes. But more than that, remember that these natural language models are predictive models, right? So when I look at what it writes mostly what it predicts should come next. So there's a very famous folk song, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Okay, so if you just wrote Mary Had, the AI would 99.9% complete it, a little lamb. And if you have a little folk story that is very famous in your area and you put the first 4 or 5 words in, it will probably complete it with exactly what the ending should be. It's called a predictive model. But our thought processes are not always sequential, and very often they are unpredictable, and that is what our creativity is about, right? And so we have to guard ourselves of having a homogenized type of expression where it flattens out. We want to keep that richness, that tapestry of our creative writing, of our creative thoughts. And so we must guard against this sort of flattening out. So as we integrate AI into language education, it really is crucial to address ethical considerations and policies. These include the impact on teacher-student relationships, data privacy, algorithmic biases, and the digital divide. Ensuring that AI tools are designed and used ethically will help protect students' rights and well-being while maximizing the benefits of AI-enhanced learning. So data privacy, algorithmic fairness, and equitable access to technology are essential to foster a just and inclusive education environment. And in the sense, I mean that, so let's say that you are going to have headsets, and the headsets use eye tracking. So now you are having biometrics. So the question always is, who has access to all of the data? And what will be done with all of the data so that we as people are not reduced to just data points. But again, this shows where we have this trifecta, and it is a dynamic trifecta, right? So on one hand, we are concerned with data privacy, and then on the other hand, when we use headsets for virtual reality, it gives us this realistic context in which we can move, even though we are in a classroom. So we can go up to, it's been my dream to go up to Mount Machu Picchu, but it's very high, and I don't know if I can still go in my age. But I could use a headset and actually go virtually. So those are the moments that give you freedom. But in order to do that, my eyes will be tracked, and there will be a biometric data point that will be left as a permanent imprint. So as educators, we have to think about the holistic space. It is a trifecta, and as a trifecta goes, it has goods, it has best, it has also negative spaces. The integration of AI and advanced technologies in education presents both exciting opportunities and complex challenges. The caveat is that our current exponential transformative processes involve more than merely adopting new tools. They necessitate a fundamental reevaluation of how these technologies alter teaching and learning and could potentially change our neurological structures. While AI can handle information delivery and basic skills acquisition, it lacks the ability to teach complex human skills such as creativity, empathy, and reasoning. And remember, AI does not have ethics, right? It doesn't understand what that is. It's a binary system. So when we look at what the world might look like in the future, so you have in Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and there you have a sort of dynamic trifecta because they integrate AI in education while preserving the human elements of learning. And they have a totally different system. They have learning hubs. And I think that might be a way to go forward in the future, where you have these dynamic interactive learning hubs. So going on, I want to share with you what I think we are looking at. So we have academic intelligence, social intelligence, meta-knowing intelligence, metacognitive intelligence, meta-subjective intelligence, meta-contextual intelligence, and then we have this perceived self-efficacy. So if a student or I feel efficient in what we are doing. And on one side, we have customization, diverse knowledge sources, specialization, reliance on outside resources, the knowledge explosion, and learning by doing. This is the AI, right? And on the other side, on the right-hand side, we have uniform learning, teacher as expert, standardized assessment, knowledge in the head, coverage, and learning by acquisition. So I am not saying that you have to give up everything from the right-hand side, but what we have to think about it is, how can we go and connect to these meta-knowing, these metacognitive, and these meta-subjective spaces where our students become self-efficient, because we're not just teaching them context anymore. We are also teaching them the reiteration of learning. Learning is no longer going to be a finite space. So when my father graduated from medical school and he became a doctor, of course he had continuing education, but the field didn't really change so spectacularly within 1 or 2 years. Now, when you think about becoming a doctor, it is almost impossible not to work with AI, as AI has become an integral part of making a medical diagnosis. That means that the way that you work with your patients and that the way that you run your work as a physician has fundamentally changed. And that means that you have to upskill all of the time. So what is it? Is it a catalyst for change or a nexus of disruption? So the integration of AI into language education really stands at a critical juncture, serving both as a catalyst for innovative learning experiences and a potential disruptor of established pedagogical practices. And this convergence compels educators and institutions to navigate unprecedented changes that could reshape the entire landscape of learning and balancing the benefits of personalized adaptive technologies with the risk of diminishing pedagogical autonomy. And I want to go back one more time to my trifecta and take a look at it. So when you think about it, here, teachers are facilitators and co-learners. Artificial intelligence is a tool and a participant, and students are active agents of their own learning. And this really focuses on where learning occurs, where learning unfolds, and where learning happens. So learning used to happen in classrooms, in libraries, at your study desk. But now learning might happen in a virtual reality. Learning might happen in a metaverse, right? In a simulation. And where and when is also changing. So when I grew up, our school started at 7:30 a.m. and we had school on Saturdays. Now, school was done, it was done like around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you would go home for lunch, and then you would do whatever you were doing. You were studying, or you were going and had a little job as you got older, or you would be in a sports team, or what have you. This is all expanding, right? Because you could have, let's say that you are very interested in ancient Greek writing, but it's not available where you are. So now you might go to a metaverse, right, where you have a ancient Greek professor, the best in the world, and he is teaching, or she is teaching, in this space. So now learning is no longer bound by a space, and it's no longer bound definitely by specific school times, because you can expand that space of learning, which also means that if it permeates throughout a nation, that it really will give people who live perhaps in more rural areas the ability to have the same educational advantages of perhaps in a more denser city structure. On the other hand, what will you need for that? You also will need internet connectivity, and that is that digital divide that I spoke to you about. But for students are becoming an active agent of their own learning, because they now have access to two. They have access to their teacher, and then they have access to AI. But then what is the teacher's responsibility? The teacher's responsibility in this trifecta is not only to understand what the content is and what is truth and specificity. It is also to teach students how to discern between that which is true and what AI still does a lot, hallucination. And that is a teaching approach that really has now 3 different entities within that interact with each other. So I hope that this keynote address has provided you with a little bit of a situational awareness of AI in education, emphasizing the importance of co-evolving teaching practices that enhance learning while preserving the essential role of educators. And I am ready for any questions. Are there any questions? So the question that I see is unfortunately in Russian, and since I don't speak any Russian, might someone in the team translate it to me into English, please? How can educators use embodied cognition theory to preserve a sense of presence and engagement in AI-enhanced classroom? So we have to understand that embodied cognition, we are not a head on a stalk, right? Our brain is not disconnected from the rest of our body. And you all know that if you've ever seen a gymnast, soar through the air, or a ballerina dance on stage, everything comes together in our body. And when we don't feel well, our cognitive abilities are definitely impaired. So I say that for early childhood education, we should be very specific of why we would use AI spaces, and really focus on that physical development of children's bodily abilities, right? Going out in nature. But as we get older, I think project-based work that is in situ, meaning that has to do with practical transfer of knowledge. You're taking theory and you're making it practical, and you're saying, so let's plan in language education. Let's pretend that you are going to be a tour guide of Moscow for a group of international visitors who only speak English. You're going to work first on creating your map, right, with an AI and the best places, and you're going to work out what the distance would be. And then the embodied cognition would be, and now you have to go and you have to walk that route. You have to practice it in the reality of the actual physical presence of the city. You have to go in front of that painting that you want to show, or in front of that building. And then I, as an educator, would ask for realia. I would ask for a photo. I would ask for a screenshot. I would ask for a brochure. I would ask them to show me proof of work. Okay. You mentioned watermark words that let you know that the student has used AI. I'm a university professor, and I too find it quite easy to spot AI. I find that most of my students have become heavily dependent on AI, and I don't think it's a good thing in my humble opinion. These students are using their original voice and the ability to write effectively without AI assistance. So I think that globally, I don't think that any of us have been untouched by the by that space where all of our students all of our students' work sort of sounds the same. And that's what I meant with a homogenization of language and a flattening out of language, because that is definitely a danger. So the question is, how do you ask for proof of work? So perhaps the way that we structure our assignments is no longer conducive to getting our students to that point of self-efficiency. So remember when I just talked about perceived self-efficacy. So how do we get there, right? So learning by doing, reliance on outside sources. So perhaps if we take a look at this trifecta yet once more, structured prompting. We have to teach our students structured prompting, and then we need to teach our students on how to discern between that which is well researched and that the AI will give to them, and that which is a hallucination, which actually is a lot of work. 2, then the students need to put in their own voice. And here what I ask of my students is they get a first run or a draft from an AI, and then they highlight the pieces that they write in relation to it. So now they are co-working with their writing. Why am I doing it? Because it is better that I see the way that they construct their work instead of just letting them run it through the AI process. This becomes then a discussion between the AI and the student, and then it becomes a discussion between me and the student, because then I am looking at where is what your addition to this is, where it makes it your work and not the AI's work. Okay, and so that is really what I meant with it's going to change the way that we teach. So I use AI as an idea generator. Okay, but I have to tell you something. AI will not do the work for you, because you will not be able to understand between a hallucination and factfulness if you don't have subject matter expertise. And that is, I think, the biggest thing that we need to teach our students. So in Bloom's taxonomy, the lowest part is remembering. Then comes understanding, then comes analyzing, then comes synthesizing. So in the lowest part, if you're a language educator or any type of educator, physics, math, doesn't matter. If you don't remember the terminology for the subject that you are studying, then you can't understand it because you don't have the words, right? So if you're a language learner and you don't have any vocabulary, it's really difficult to understand when people talk to you. So you're not going to get away with, I don't need to learn it, because not only do you need to learn it, but in the end, you need to be on a higher level because you are now competing against a system that is much larger and can hallucinate what looks like factfulness. And it is up to you as a content specialist to ferret out, to figure out which one is factful and which one is not. So let's go to something simple. We all know that 2 plus 2 is 4. But let's say our younger students say, I don't need to learn that anymore. And now they are there and it says 2 plus 2 is 9. They wouldn't be able to know the difference because they never learned how to do addition. Second thing, 1,000 people say that the Eiffel Tower is in London or that the Red Square is in the Bahamas. Well, we know better, but if you have students who have never had to look at maps and geography, they wouldn't. So this is why it is important that we move them from remembering to understanding to analyzing to synthesizing, and they cannot lose these steps. Otherwise, they will not be able to see the subtle variances that are inherent in AI hallucinations. Now, people are saying, "Oh, nobody needs to learn how to code anymore." This is just not true, because the code that AI type of programs generate are so full of bugs that it takes longer to fix the bugs than it would be for a human coder to actually write the code themselves. Now, in my opinion, what's the best usage of AI for pedagogical educational purposes and goals? So I use AI to lay out, for me, I use it to lay out curriculum and syllabi. Like if I have 10 modules, I give a very, very specific prompts and use those to create some major syllabi, and that has worked definitely very well for me. Can you share in high school in creativity in students? Yes, I can share a task where this enhances critical thinking. So I don't know where you all work. So for example, I teach a class in methodology for language education. And so you have these different methods: communicative language teaching, suggestive phobia, total physical response. And what I used to do before was I had students read, diverse papers, and then tell me something about the total physical response and how they would use it in the classroom. I do this differently now. I tell my students they have to take one of their lesson plans that they're already doing anyway in their class, and that they should share it with the AI and ask the AI to give feedback on how to implement the method that they have chosen to put in. Okay. So then they have to show what the AI has told them in screenshots. Then they have to go and critique what the AI has said. And then they have to take that whole package. Now I have lots of realia, and go to their own classroom that they have in the school without students and showcase their understanding of the method, combining what the AI has given them together with their own reflection. That would be one use case. Any more questions? Are there any more questions that I can answer? Okay, here. Could you describe a specific use case where AI teachers and students collaborated to create a uniquely productive learning experience? So I have asked students to go, remember I'm teacher educator, to go and look at, let's say, a learning standard for my state that I work for. And then look at a teaching English as a second language standard from TESOL. And then look at, in the same grade, same unit across, a math standard, right? And look at all of those and try to come up with 3 things that connect sort of. And then I asked them to feed that into the AI, whatever their preferred model is, Claude AI, ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever it is. And then I asked them to ask for I call it like a prompt, and I teach them the prompt engineering. I asked them to ask the AI with this prompt, and then they just plug these other parts in to create a lesson plan that connects all of these seemingly disparate things. And so here's what happens. I teach them prompt engineering. They use things that are definitely required in their work already, together with the prompts, to ask the AI to come up with something that they would have never done before. And then we evaluate as a critical reflective piece, where I put them into groups, if these ideas from the AI are feasible or not. So now I have the trifecta: teacher, student, AI, and we end up with critical feedback. If there were only one key takeaway from your presentation that you would want educators to remember, what would it be? Okay, we must have better situational awareness in the space of education, AI, and where professionally our work is going. Because one thing is for sure, it's not going to stay the same as it is now. So if we are not co-learners and co-creators and not staying ahead in our own professional development, which isn't just generic, but is going to be very specific, including prompt engineering, being able to create, for example, infographics, being able to interact with technology like a metaverse, or perhaps even design one ourselves, we are going to run into troubles, because we will be told to do it, but we must also learn how to do these things on our own. So what I'm saying is that despite the fact that I have a doctorate of education, every year I take 2 credential courses to further my own education. I spend 12 weeks a year learning new things. I am not saying that I'm always good with them, but I go and I try them out so that I am aware of what my candidates will be asked to use in the future. Because remember this, anyone you are working with today will be working in 2060. And so we are not educating them for 2025 and 2026. We ought to be educating our students for the future. And for that, they will need creativity, a mindset of that they can handle ambiguity, a mindset of that they are lifelong learners, and that they are curious, and that they are willing to take risk. Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate the invitation. And I hope that you all enjoyed my presentation on co-evolving teaching practices in the AI age for International Education Week 2024. Thank you.